As a child, we all long for a hero. As a society as a whole, we search for that leader that can be our hero. But as we mature and as we grow, it dawned on us that the hero is inside every one of us. And in the world's social media, we all start at zero. And slowly we search deep within ourselves to find who we are. And we have that moment of truth where we embrace that the hero that we've been searching for has been there all along. It is living deep inside of every one of us. And we start embracing that journey and we become that hero that we search for.
Hey, everybody, good morning and welcome to episode 30 of Zero to Hero. Joined by another special guest today, another one of these young people that are making a huge difference in the Kansas City community. We've got Joe Moreno with us. He is the co-founder of Belong Community, which have some really exciting things coming in 2023. So let's bring him in, Joe Moreno and Kevin Kwok.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Joe, thanks for being on our show.
Yes, no, it's an honor to be here. I appreciate the invite. And that intro, it gives you goosebumps a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me a little about the Belong community before we get started.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to, Kevin. So Belong Community, where did I start? I mean, so in 2018, it was a young adult ministry of a church. A good friend of mine named Fabian Gonzalez started it. The goal there, it was in Liberty. So the goal there was just to reach as many William Jewell College students as possible, and just get them in the community, get them in the relationships, friendships. And obviously for us, it was centered around faith. And so that was our main goal when we started out. And but the heart behind it is really in the name, Belong, right? So we wanted a faith community, our church, to be a place where people can belong before they believe. And, I think there's a lot of stigmas and preconceived notions as it pertains to the church and Christian community. And so we wanted to kind of break down some barriers in those walls and start it out. And so from 2018 to about 2019, we started gathering each week, and we're essentially partaking in a service and just centered around community. And we had grown from about like 12 folks. When we first started, it was just like all of our friends. So it was like another hangout. But we grew from about 12 to about 20 and so on and so forth. And in 2019, Fabian, who started it, he took a new position. He was appointed to be a campus pastor at a nearby church. And so he had left and we were without leadership, and Belong Community was essentially this fun thing we did for 8 months, and it was going to dissolve. But myself and then a good friend of mine, my brother, Sean McCullough, he felt the same burden I felt. And we love this thing so much, we can't let it die. And so, we had people saying, you guys should take it over. We were getting these little, intuitions and inklings here and there. And eventually we said, you know what, we'll take it over. And so he and I have led it together since 2019. And I mean, here we are in 2022, and it's been a community that's grown from, like I said, 12 to 20 to now, we have anywhere from 50 to 60 people each week. And we've seen a lot of life change. We put a huge emphasis on people's lives just being transformed by our faith, and doing a lot of outreach and community work. And it's such that's a very small. I try to stay short-winded with it, but it's a big story. But there's been a lot of big faith elements to it. There's been a lot of miracles and a lot of love in it, and it's been great.
That's awesome. So I did my share of also church planning myself. So grew up in the Christian home, and then being Asian for a while after when my wife and I first got married, we went back to. I grew up in a Chinese church, right? Because my parents were Chinese, right? In a small town, Springfield, Missouri. And when we first got married, we decided to kind of take on the ministry with the youth, because I knew the challenge of being Asian American. First,
Wow.
being we were, I'm first generation, but I came here when I was 6, so I'm an American, right? I grew up here.
Yeah.
But then I understand the challenge of these kids, right? Their parents were very traditional, with their culture. So we decided, hey, let's go back and so we did that for a couple of years before actually we moved to Kansas City. And when we moved to Kansas City, our home church in Springfield, Missouri, you might have heard James River Assembly.
I have heard of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Summit Park was planted here, so we knew the pastor, and then we were part of that church planting. And now they've grown, and we aren't going there anymore. But at the same time, we understand like what it takes, the heart it takes, the work it takes, and we're in a audience here where we have a LinkedIn audience, and a lot of people forget that planning a church isn't much different than growing an organization or business, right? People forget, they have this misconception, right? It's almost like a missionary, voluntary. Well, guess what? Pastors need to eat too. And so there's missionaries, and they got to feed a family. And people forget that, right? These guys are doing it for Jesus. Therefore, it's voluntary. Why do they need money or anything like that, right? It's But the truth is, they need support too, and people forget that, and they also don't understand that. There's preaching the gospel, but there's also keeping the doors open and the building and bills and different things that still come at them the exact same way, right? It doesn't. Because your pastor is free rent. It doesn't happen like that. So, even though Joe's on here on this show, we're on LinkedIn, and not everyone, are Christians, and we don't expect you to be. But the truth is, there's not much difference, right? And organizational leadership from a church perspective, and in the secular world or in the business world, it still takes good leaders. There's bad leaders in the church too. So,
no, exactly. I completely agree with you, Kevin. And honestly, that's exciting to hear. You've kind of walked this path we're currently on right now, because that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. I know Gino kind of alluded to it at the beginning, but we've essentially we're shifting from being a young adult ministry to now planting the church in 2023. And it's very much like an entrepreneurial take. You're taking a lot of risk, you're investing a lot of time and resources into it, and you're building up team, and you're building up leaders. And I'll say this: a lot of my ministry time over the past few years, really until now, has been bivocational. So I've worked jobs, or two jobs. I've only ever had two jobs. I worked at JCPenney in college, and I worked for a logistics company for the past 4 years called eShipping. And I tell you, I've learned more about leadership and actually almost like leading a church. I've learned so much from my jobs, more than I would say even learned while facilitating, small groups or things like that, which you always learn from that. But I think that's one thing is, in the workplace, I learned how to lead meetings. I learned how to set deadlines. I learned how to create mission and vision and planning. And and so all of that has translated to this church planning journey. And I wouldn't be the leader I am today if I didn't have that experience in the workplace.
That's awesome. So let's get started. So in couple sentences, give me an elevator pitch, not about Belong Community, but you. Who is Joe, and what makes you click?
Excuse me. Yeah. It doesn't help. I swallowed the wrong way. But an elevator pitch for me, that's a good question, because usually it is for Belong. But for myself, I would say I am a passionate man of God who puts a huge emphasis on faith and family and seeing others reach their potential, maximize their potential. I'm passionate about leadership. I'm passionate about building up leaders. And I've really, truly lived to see lives transform, obviously through the gospel, but also just in also many other ways.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, so one of our core values here at J29 Creative is transformation,
Hmm.
right? And I feel, transformation is so important, right? No matter if your organization or your church, with anything, even within the home, right? In the
Mm.
families,
Hmm. Yeah.
no, we aren't perfect. No one's created to be perfect, right?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
know sometimes if you're just scrolling through social media, everything seems so perfect, right? But the
Hmm.
truth is,
Yeah.
we aren't,
Yeah.
and we all need transformation. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter where we are in our lives. You
Yeah.
can be the most successful person in the world. You can have all the cars, all the houses,
Hmm.
but there's room for transformation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
You're 100% right. Yeah. No,
Mm-hmm.
we're definitely something we share in the same passion because we often learn, I think, in life, like you said, the material things, the things, positions and titles and things that we think are going to fulfill us seem to never fill that void. And so I think, obviously, for me, the gospel is what fills that void and that relationship I have with the Lord, but also to just becoming a better man, becoming a better husband, becoming a better friend. And I think that's all part of the transformation process. And it leads to an abundant life, a full life, life to the fullest.
Because I always challenge myself, right? Um, I notice a lot of times, when we become adults, we get so caught up in this career, right? Because that's what you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to do. You're a big boy now. You got to make a living,
Yeah.
and or a big girl. You got
Yeah.
to take care of your bills, and we get caught up chasing this hamster wheel,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because and it's a necessary evil, right? You have to do
Mm-hmm.
it because you got to pay
Yeah.
bills, right?
Yeah.
But then we get caught up and then we start losing ourselves, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
part of why zero to hero, right? We all start at zero, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
our journey in life that creates that resume who we are. But we
Yeah.
get caught up who we are is
Mm-hmm.
because of our career. We
Mm-hmm.
identify our status as because I'm a real estate investor, I'm a CEO, I'm
Mm-hmm.
a senior account executive or whatever,
Yeah.
right? We get caught up in these titles and
Yeah.
then we lose ourselves because that's really not who you are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're way
You're right.
more beyond these titles. And I see it every day. You scroll through LinkedIn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone talks about all these things about like, oh, we just landed this deal, or giving recommendation to how to be happier, how to be alive. Don't you want to be happy? That thing. But what really gives you happiness isn't all. I don't feel a success coach or a business coach is going to provide that for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
what we're missing is something a lot more, right?
Yeah.
I see so many people that become very successful in their business, but
Mm-hmm.
then their home's broken.
Yeah.
Their kids don't have the attention that they need. I caught myself in that category. You get
Wow.
so
Yeah.
caught up in life. I go to church on Sundays, but when I'm home, I'm so tired. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
giving time with my kids, and
Mm-hmm.
those things has to be intentional.
Yeah. You're so correct, Kevin. Yeah. No, you're preaching right now, brother. I love
Yeah.
it. No, literally, identity cannot be wrapped up in something that is temporary because anything can change. Your job, your materials, your finances, that can change in the matter of a moment. And so for our identity to be wrapped up in something so, minimal or something that's not long lasting, something that won't be there forever, right? I always hear this quote, right? That you never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. because you can't
That's
take
true.
everything in this life with you. So that means there has to be virtues, there has to be values in your life that are beyond a tangible item. As you can see, I'm a big shoe guy behind me. I got a lot of shoes in this room, and man, I tell you, I will crave buying one pair of shoes, and I'll get that pair of shoes, and I'll stare at it for a day or two, and I'll wear it, and then next I'm on to the next shoe. I'm on to the next thing, and that's just, I think, of an example of how a lot of us get caught up in this rat race of the next thing, being this, doing that, accomplishing this, when I believe that it's really looking inwardly, growing and becoming transformed within yourself by maturity, by character, by calling, that you find true fulfillment in this life, to the point where, God forbid, if you ever did get laid off, or if you ever had to pay a huge medical debt and a lot of your savings or wealth is washed out, you'll be able to have peace because you were never really wrapped into that. You never wrapped your identity in that.
Yeah, and I think people forget, happiness isn't found in the stuff we chase, right? Happiness
Hmm.
is actually finding peace in ourselves, right? And
Hmm.
it's a matter of perspective. And I know I've been to third world countries and different things, and
Yeah.
I'm like, how are those people so happy? How are these kids so happy? They're on a pile of trash and they're playing. And
Mm,
then you
mm,
start going, oh, it's because the perspective, right? They have a
mm,
different perspective than us in America because we're so used to these things. So now we want
mhm,
more. And I
mm.
even learned when I lost everything. I have this story where I ended up going bankrupt after being a business owner
Wow.
and losing everything, right? And I
Mm,
can truly say the happiest time of my life was some of those moments. I went back
mm.
to fried chicken for my
Wow.
uncle with a college degree, being a business owner, led like software teams,
Mm,
and
wow.
going back, I went back to my uncle owned a fried chicken place, and
Mm.
on the campus I graduated from. So
Wow.
I was an alumni of that college. People recognized me because I was a business owner in that small town, and
Wow.
I'm just frying chicken. But those were
Wow.
some of the funnest times of my life and the happiest. I met
Mm,
my wife during that time, and I
wow.
pretty much lost everything. And
Wow.
people forget it's not the things that make you happy.
Mhm,
It's
mhm,
our perspective and the peace we find that makes us
mm.
happy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's
with
so good.
So with that said, please tell me a little about your social media journey.
Oh, yeah, social media. Um, I would say, I mean, when I first created my accounts, right, thinking back all those years ago, uh, I remember MySpace, which we should bring that back because I really enjoyed the music playlists you could make in your top 8 friends. Anyways, but my social media journey, I guess you could say, started there, and then eventually Facebook and Instagram, and I guess when it started for me, it was more just a social platform, staying connected with my fellow classmates, and everything is that. But as time has gone on, I've really seen social media just as an avenue of connection for our community in the church. I've seen it become an avenue of creativity and content creation. I've seen it as an avenue to use my giftings. I've invested in some, lighting and technology and microphone stuff, to be able to use the gifts that I have to be of benefit to other people. I for one am not the person that wants to post every little thing. I used to be. I'd go and get tacos at the taqueria, and I'd say, "Look at this," and not saying if you do that, something's wrong with you. It's just for me. I got to a point where it was like, social media can be a tool for helping others, or it can be a tool of just making it about myself. And I wanted it to be a tool to help others. And so I've started creating little short devotion videos here and there that I'll use biblical principles and give a short 10-second, 15-second teaching on that, to hopefully just encourage somebody in their day. I know for me, leading a church, and leading social media teams, one thing I often tell my team is I want us to do three things. I want us to engage, I want us to equip, and I want us to encourage. If you're not engaging with people, people are just coming and looking at your calendar of events, right? You're making it about the event itself and not creating an event in your social media. So engage with people, connect with people, obviously equip people. I think social media can be a tool for learning. I know my parents, my stepmom often talks about all the things she learns from TikTok. And I'm like, what are you on TikTok for, number one? But also, number two, I'm really glad you learned this hack, right? And so it's an equipping place. And lastly, it's an encouraging place. I think if you're scrolling for hours on end, I doubt you're smiling the whole time, because you'll read a headline, you'll see that your team lost to the Bengals 3 times in a row. You'll see something that's going to upset you, right? And so if my platform or our church's platform could be a place where a posting could put a smile on your face and uplift you in some way and encourage you, I would want that to be a part of the goal.
No, I love that. And, what you just said doesn't actually just apply to church, right? Engage, connect, encourage. That applies in business too. People do social media wrong, right? We get so caught up in focusing on the brand itself and the organization, and we forget no one cares. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I hate when people go, "Oh, I'm the best," let's say bug company, exterminator.
Voted number one.
You voted number one. You're just tooting your own horn. Of course, I'm going to say, if I were to tell you, oh, I'm the best digital marketing agency in Kansas City, to me, that's laughable. I'll be going, oh, that's a joke. Or whose standards? How can you say that? For you to say you're number one, that is like, it makes me actually question you. Show me,
Yeah.
And it's like, I love what you just said. Engage, connect, encourage, or educate people, right?
Yeah.
Do some of the things. That's why people want to interact with a social account, is to find those things, right? Because that's how we're going to get to know the brand. And so it's not just church social media. This can apply to any organization.
Yeah, anywhere. I think we've gotten to a point in social media where everyone is kind of on a level playing field. Everyone knows how to post now. Everyone knows how to do captions and post pictures, but it's those who go a step above, and those who innovate within their social media. I think those are the ones that make the difference. And in my perspective, I think what sets a church apart, what sets a business apart in their social media is, what are your testimonies, right? Get stories. People want stories, right? Why do we go to the movies? We love a good story, right? And so if you can incorporate the stories of the impact your company's making, I think that's a huge win. I think if you could, engage in a way that's fun, having some sort of contesting, having some sort of feedbacks and more testimonial survey-esque things that gets people engaged, I think that makes a difference. And I think an education leg to what you do on social media is so key. If I go on your profile and it's all about your product and you're not equipping or educating someone to maybe help in that same vertical, I think it's just about yourself. If you're showing that you're willing to engage beyond yourself and educate, whether it be your church or be your business, to me, that's an attractive profile and worth a follow to me. Because if it's going to be just you posting pictures all the time and telling me why your product is so great just through really boring mediums, I'm just not really going to engage. I would rather have something that's interactive, that's innovative, and fun.
And I think nowadays it's more important than ever to have that authentic content, right? Because we just got thrown this ranch, right? So anyone that's on social media or active have probably seen this whole AI, right?
Yeah.
So either where people are taking their photos, they're producing this AI art of your selfie, or nowadays there's also the AI where a lot of content that's produced that you think is really well written is written by Jarvis. It's like it's an AI, right?
Yeah.
Like an agency like me can easily pay for an AI and they'll just write my content for me, right?
Yeah.
But there is beauty in the flaws. I know in the past, we live in a world we're caught up. Oh, if it's professional, we need proper grammar. It needs to be these perfect things. But I think the world is going to get to a point where everything's produced by AI, where it's a breath of fresh air. You'll know this if you're in my world. I'm in social media. I'm in the digital marketing agency world. You'll start noticing there's more perfect content on LinkedIn. And you can spot out who's using an AI and who's writing it themselves. And I think eventually social media is going to be very vanilla in the business world.
Yeah.
Because everyone's using products to produce. So there's no more heart and there's no more you.
Yeah.
And to me, that's scary,
Yeah, that's real. No, I think you're completely right. The term that comes to mind for me as we talk about this is the human factor. I think we're losing the human factor in our online connectivity. I always heard, this quoting to where essentially, through social media, we're as connected as we've ever been. But I believe, we may be able to connect with someone across the globe, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're connecting in a human way, right? In a way that is, I can experience your life, I can empathize, I can sympathize. And I feel like social media, for us not to get where it's so AI and it's all just very bland and vanilla, I believe we must continue to incorporate the human factor. And like you said, I love how you put it, Kevin, the heart. The heart is a big part of the human factor, right? Having your heart, sharing your flaws, sharing your mistakes. Maybe not everything has to be crisp cut perfect. Maybe you can use something that isn't as perfect as can be, and it can still be a beautiful thing. I think just like with any human, confidence is going to be key, and self-awareness and being able to communicate is going to be key. But I think if we can keep the human factor in our social media, it's going to be a big help.
Love it. And I think we get so caught up, how can we live longer? How can we become more perfect? Or the world tells us what's perfect, right?
Yeah.
That we lose the idea that, hey, as much as now we're talking about like, oh, you got to love yourself, but then also you see what's happening in the world is also the opposite. It's contradicting, right? We're telling ourselves to love ourselves, but we go be dependent on robots, to speak for us or write for us or create images of us. That's not us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's kind of contradicting. I think it's so important to not lose ourselves in the midst of getting caught up in new technology. And it's the heart, right? I always said at first, I thought, hey, during COVID, that because of the pandemic, we all got used to this, right? Doing Zoom calls, doing live shows.
Yep.
And I don't think it'll ever change. I always thought, hey, maybe it'll just take over, right? But the truth is, I'm learning everyone still prefers that cup of coffee in person, or people love going shopping again. The data shows, as soon as, there was vaccines, people are back out.
Yeah. No, it's what I believe. Community and connection is what our soul craves. I believe when we isolate ourselves, that's when the darkness tends to grow within ourselves. It's known that mold grows best in the darkness. When you shed light on it, it stunts its growth. And I believe the same things can be said about ourselves and some of the darkness we see within ourselves, right? Because we're all not perfect. We all have our flaws, and we all have our things that we're not proud of. But I believe if we can bring it all to the light and connect with other people and say, oh, you struggle with that too, or oh, you've been in situations where you had anxiety too, or right, just these different things that we think divide us actually connect us, and that really can only happen by way of being face to face and sitting at a table and having a conversation. And I had a great conversation with a guy yesterday talking about faith and life, and it was a really vulnerable conversation, because I believe a good conversation includes some sort of vulnerability. And so we were talking, and I walked away from our 2-hour conversation, and I just felt like it was a warm cup of coffee to the soul. Like, a good conversation is a warm cup of coffee to the soul. It just warms you up, and it energizes you to keep moving forward.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So every superhero has a defining moment. What is yours when it comes to life and career?
Man, that's it's a tough question. I would say at 16. I'd say at 16 I had my defining moment. So I was raised by a single mother, and it was me, my sister, who's 2 years older than me, and my mom for majority of my childhood. Essentially, at 16, it was the first weekend of summer. I was a sophomore going into junior year, and first week in the summer, right? Everyone's excited, everyone's ready to go. I was playing video games with my friends all night, right? And but that first weekend, something happened that changed the trajectory of my life. To keep it brief, one night, stayed out all night playing video games with my neighbors, came home, went to bed, but woke up a few hours later to my sister, who was very frantic. And she said, something's wrong, brother, wake up. And so I woke up, and essentially my mother had woken up and unfortunately had a stroke. She had a stroke, and we called the ambulance. They got there quickly. They did everything they could to revive her, but unfortunately she had passed away. And so that moment, right, just completely rocked my life. Just a feeling of numbness, a feeling of out of body, right? You're just like, what do I do? My life is never going to be the same again. What do I do? And it was at that moment I remembered my mom would always talk about Jesus. She was like unashamedly, so like her slogan in life was "Thank you, Jesus." And so as
That's
I
awesome.
was as I was thinking about her life and how she would maybe want me to move on, there at 16, I was sitting in the basement of the home we lived in, and I said out loud, I said, Jesus, if you're real, you're going to have to be real, because I have no other option. I need you to follow. I need to follow you. I have no other option. I need you to lead me. I need you to provide for me. We don't know how we're going to finish school, how we're going to go about life, as we keep moving forward. I need you, Jesus. And so, I gave my life to the Lord there. I gave my life to him at 16. And I had this urge to download the Bible app. I had like a little baby Android phone at the time. I'm team iPhone, so I've been saved, but I haven't. I had an Android phone at the time, and I downloaded the Bible app, and I didn't know anything about the Bible. I didn't know scriptures, verses, chapters. I downloaded it, and what made it easy about the YouVersion Bible app is it's topical, so you can,
Yep.
you can say sad verses for when you're sad, and so I would select these verses, and it would give me life, and I was able to keep moving forward. And I had read about the joy that comes after suffering. I had read about the peace that's beyond understanding, the peace that Jesus gives that this world cannot give. And all of these scriptures were just giving me faith, giving me life. And as life kept moving forward, I remember my family, obviously we were mourning and grieving but as life kept moving forward, I was able to mourn and grieve, but I knew that there was hope, and my hope was in Christ. And that's what set the trajectory for the rest of my life. I'm 27, so 11 years later, here I am pastoring a community alongside my best friend Sean and my wife Jesse and the team that we have, and I'm living the dream. I truly am living the dream. I may not be making the most money. I may not be having the nice Tesla, but
you got the nice shoes.
I do have the nice shoes. If anyone wants to donate a Tesla, no, but all that to say, I may not have the ideal life or the American dream.
I see the Jordans back there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got the Air Jordans for sure, but I at least I'm gonna look nice being broke and preaching the gospel. But no, that moment, right at 16, it was at my deepest, darkest, most traumatic moment. It changed the trajectory of my life, and I'm grateful for my life. And no matter how hard it may have been, and I've seen God's hand so vividly. And it, like most superhero stories, right? Like,
yep.
All of our favorite superheroes, for some reason, always have to lose somebody. And I would count myself blessed to have maybe experienced suffering because I've seen the joy of the Lord in my life.
But you always hear, right? A lot of quotes out there too. It says like, you can't grow in comfort. And a lot of times growth is found in your pain and suffering, right? In your journey. And I even found it myself, like, certain things happen in my life that gave me the wake up call to need something more, right? I think that's why every superhero story and movies have that defining moment, because we typically don't discover ourselves when everything's just smooth sailing.
Yeah.
And because it requires more of us, because what the growth comes in the overcoming, right? And I think people forget that it really challenges us mentally. When we're mentally just comfortable, everything's going good. We're not on that, what they call fight or flight, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're completely right.
And I think it just triggers that supernatural, superhuman, that's already there, right? We just never use it because it's survival mode,
Yeah, no,
you're
literally.
16, your mom was probably everything, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you come from a Chinese family,
Yep.
I mean, I'm Mexican. Like, family is everything.
Family's everything, man.
Yeah, family is everything. And so for something so tragic to happen within my family, it took it pushed me into the deep end of life. Right? You ever see someone, you push them into the deep end and they're like frantically like, I don't know what to do, but eventually you can learn how to swim just by jumping in.
Yep.
It's like those babies that you see, they toss them in the pool and you're like, oh my gosh, the baby's gonna drown. But they float and they learn how to swim. And I think the same could be said when tragic things happen in life. We can see it as an obstacle or we can see it as an opportunity. And so each of us have that. We're given that free will to choose. Is this going to be an obstacle in my life that leads down a road of darkness and tragedy? Or is this going to be an opportunity for a hero story in my life and to overcome? And praise God, that's the choice I made. But I believe it was, with the Spirit, the Lord's Spirit's help.
That's awesome. So what are attributes that you feel defines a hero?
Good question. I would say sacrifice, number one. Sacrifice is that first attribute I believe any hero has to have. Someone who is willing to lay down their own desire and their own will for the greater good of somebody else. And sometimes that is for a lot of people, or sometimes that's for a few. But I believe the best heroes are those who understand life isn't about entitlement, it's about sacrifice. And so I'd say sacrifice is key. I would also say courage is key. I'd say number two, courage. It takes bravery. It takes someone with a lot of strength to just say, you know what, and you may not even have to have strength. Someone that just says, you know what, I'm willing to make myself vulnerable and I'm willing to fail. I'm willing to fall flat on my face, but at the very minimum, I trust I'm going to fall forward. I'm going to learn from this, even if I make a mistake, because I am, or even if I fail, so to speak, worst case scenario, there's still good that can come out of this. So therefore, I had the courage to keep moving forward. And yeah, and I think courage is also connected with faith. You have to have some sort of faith. Obviously, for people like you and I, our faith is in Jesus and it's in our Christian walk. And I'd say that's the best faith you could have because it's beyond yourself. But even more, and maybe you're listening to this and you're not a Christian and you're not open to that right now. I believe you can still have faith in yourself and have faith in other people, because I think so often we're pessimistic toward ourselves and say, I can't do this, or they'll never do that. But I think we'll surprise ourselves when we put a little faith and trust that moving forward.
That's awesome. I 100% agree with you. It's finding, we need faith in everything that we do, right? Because that's what gives us hope. And a lot of times you lose faith is when you lose hope. So.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And there's this scripture, and I'm struggling to remember exactly. I believe it's in Romans, and it says that when trials come, it's an opportunity for perseverance to grow. And when perseverance grows, you grow in endurance. And when endurance grows, it leads to greater character, which then gives you hope. And the hope of salvation that we have, it will never fail. And so if you're in a situation in life right now where you're having to persevere, when you're having to lean into endurance and your character is growing, I believe your hero story is being written.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick a superhero that relates best to you, who would that be and why?
Oh, man. That's a good one. I'm a huge... So, unfortunately, I'm one of just the movie fans. I don't know if you're a comic book fan also. I know sometimes those
I'm
people...
a movie fan.
Okay, got it. So, shout out to the comic book readers. But myself, I'm a huge Marvel guy. No offense to DC, but I love Marvel. DC needs to step it up. But
I agree.
But all that, yeah. But hey, they got James Gunn, so maybe that'll help them. But for me, it's going to be a Marvel character. And I would say, as much as I'd like to say Tony Stark, because he's my favorite, I think I'm more of a Peter Parker.
Okay.
I'm a younger person. Sometimes my bridges are too big for me, and I need, mentors and leaders and pastors in my life to come and help show me the way. But I think I have potential. And, thinking about Peter Parker, he's someone that was not likely. He was someone that was, I would say, maybe had odds against him. He wasn't a popular person. He's kind of more of a nerd, someone that played the background. And I know I seem charismatic and everything here on this conversation, but at one point in my life, I was someone who was, in the background, wasn't one to speak up or have charisma or confidence. And I think it was through this journey I've been on, I think God's just brought it out of me and showed me the gifting I have within me that I didn't know I had. And I think Peter's kind of the same way. I think he had abilities and strengths that he didn't know he had until he started pursuing it, and he had someone to come alongside him and show him the way. And so I'd say Peter Parker.
That's awesome. So I think we had so many solid points in this entire conversation, right?
Yeah.
In the midst of our trials and challenges in life, you gotta find that faith, right? And faith builds endurance to give you hope. And I think hope is what keeps us going as human beings, and strength is in community and relationships. So before we end today, what's the best way, Joe, to follow and connect with you?
Yeah, so you can connect with me on Facebook, Joseph Moreno the fourth,
The
or
fourth.
on the fourth. There's four of us, or on Instagram. I believe it's Joe Marino underscore IV. But even more than that, connect with us on our church's website and social media. We would love for you if you're looking for a church community, a faith community, of people that are really just wanting to show the love of the Lord to our community, and maybe break some of those barriers that people have to church. Come and connect with us. We'd love for you to share in community with us. And like I said, we're transitioning to church plant, so we're looking for folks to help, take this burden on with us and build something amazing.
So where will the Belong community be located? Where
That's a
are
good
you guys?
question.
Yeah.
That's a good question. And we're praying through that. More than likely, we're going to be located in North Kansas City, kind of near the Chicken and Pickle Armor Road area.
Okay.
So yeah, off Burlington. So we're believing that's where we're going to be, but there's still some doors open that we're asking God to just give us guidance on which door we need to go through.
Awesome. Well, thank
Yeah.
you, Joe, for being on our show. And hey, for those of you who don't have a church home or just interested, right? And
Yeah.
hey, what are these two guys talking about here? You know,
Yeah.
feel free connect with Joe. Hey, you can connect with me too, and
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
point you in a solid direction. So, anyway,
Yeah.
thank
This
you
has
for
been
being
fun.
on the show, and appreciate you, Joe.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and Gino. Thank you to you as well. And this has been fun. I'm open to coming on at any point if you ever need someone again.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome.